It is Big Ben Rothwell, who's just a couple days out from returning to action at BKFC 41, this loaded pay-per-view lineup in Colorado. And man, Ben, I know you love competition more than anything. Give us the feel a couple days from getting back to work.
It's been a little bit of a wait. Last fight was October 1st, so I would have liked to see it a little bit busier, but back in the beginning of the year, and it's kind of, maybe everything happens for a reason. I unfortunately in December, January, just, dude, my whole town, people were so sick. Like we're sick of COVID, but the truth is, normal flu and colds came back with a vengeance, and people, you know what I mean? Like normal stuff was just messing people up bad for like weeks at a time, whether it was COVID or not. It was just sickness in general. Got reintroduced to the population, it seems like, and it just made it harder. So I had a rough couple months there too myself. Like I said, my whole town was sick. But when I was getting better, I was kind of like calling Dave, like, hey, what's the plan? Are we looking at March, this and that? And then he told me, hey, this is what I'm working on in April. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. I'm like, I'll wait for that. So it took a little bit of a wait, but look what this is, the biggest BKFC card ever. And I'm ready to be a part of it. I'm kind of like in the beginning of it, I think, to get the co-main, the main event hyped up. They're bringing the heavyweights to get the show really, really pumping. And, toss up of opponents. I was supposed to fight one guy. He decided on day of weigh-ins that he didn't want to fight in Denver. And people are trying to say, like, oh, injury and this and that. And I'm like, I got the message. Like, he sent me a direct message telling me, like, oh, I don't know what BKFC told you, but I just didn't want to fight in Denver. And I'm like, I showed it to Dave too. I'm like, hey, here you go. Like, this is what he's saying. And obviously I don't think BKFC was too happy with them. I'm like, I'm upset because it's like, it's not too professional. They announced the fight 3 weeks before that press conference. Like, we knew we were fighting in Denver. It said right on the poster that they showed me and him fighting. So I don't know what that was about. I think everybody talks about fighting me, but when it comes to like actually having to do it, maybe he was changed his mind. I don't know. I don't care about any of that. I was ready to fight him. I wanted to fight him. I felt like he did the big thing, knocking out Greg Hardy, so it was all set up, right? So that didn't happen. Within a couple days, Josh Copeland was the one that made sense because, he was already on the card. And the matchup seems to make sense to me because he's got one win, I've got one win. We're both kind of, we could have easily fought each other anytime throughout the tenure, when I was in the UFC and through all the different organizations he fought in. So it was like a fight that could have happened. We could easily fought each other. So here we're doing it here now. And glad somebody stepped up.
I love it. Boy, on the one hand, I want to congratulate Josh Watson, I guess, on being a man and coming to you and, discussing it with you directly. But what a weird thing to admit that he just didn't want to fight in Denver. But at least you got yourself a fight here. I guess, how much did that change things for you? I mean, do you, at this point in your career, do you change and tailor your preparation different because of a different opponent, or is it just whoever's there is there?
In mixed martial arts, I try to have this strong mentality of, hey, my game plan's simple. I'm going to do this. But in MMA, let's be honest. If you're going to fight a guy like Curtis Blades, and then all of a sudden it switches to fighting a guy like Sergey, like, there's a striker versus a wrestler, like, distinctively. And obviously they both work on everything like you're supposed to, but they obviously have their strong attributes. So that could be really a switch. If you're the third guy between those two, and I'm just using them as an example of a pretty extreme both sides, MMA is completely different, unique, and can really trip someone's mind out. You can really get zoned into game planning for a particular guy, and then 2 weeks out, they're like, no, you're going to fight this guy, and he could have a completely different style. It matters in MMA. This is boxing. My guys are going to throw hands. I'm going to throw hands, and that's the game plan. It's like, do they do things a little differently? Do they move a certain way? Yeah, you can look at the intricacies of that way, looking for openings or things that guys might open up and do. I can never amplify my game plan better than here.
Yeah.
My game plan is very simple, and it's up to them to have to deal with it.
That's a great point, man. That's one I hadn't really thought of as far as BKFC goes, the difference between MMA, because, I mean, as you said, that was a perfect example. If you spend your whole training camp, grappling and wrestling, and then the week of, now you're fighting a striker, you've kind of messed up your whole training camp, right? Whereas this is like, well, the guy's going to throw left hands and he's going to throw right hands, and
You
let's
got it.
go. Incredible. All right. Well, listen, this card, I do want to mention this card. It sounds like even you get excited. I know I mean, this is a huge lineup, and I feel like it's one that's catered to MMA fans, right? I mean, you look at the names on there, but is it even exciting for you to be a part of something like this?
Of course, yeah. So I mean, I started trying to open up saying, like, when he told me about it, I'm like, oh, I'm in. There was some talks of some other stuff going on too. Obviously didn't get to happen, but I know he tried. Like, that's one thing I know. When he said he's going to go do something, like, you can see, David Feldman is very proactive. He goes for big stuff, and like, oh, you put this card together. It didn't some of the things didn't happen, but then all of a sudden it was Luke Rockhold. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a big one too. So it was all big. It's like, I knew this card was going to be awesome, and I think a lot of people are, they're making it a paper. The BKFC fans, okay, the hardcore BKFC fans, they're used to paying their $5 a month, getting everything. And David had to make a pay-per-view. He's like, look at this card. This is like, everybody kind of has to go this route when you have these kinds of names on it. I understand it. It seems completely reasonable. They gave a deal to all the BKFC like current subscribers. They cut the price in half for them. So I mean, they're trying to make it work. And from what I've seen, besides the couple of complainers, lots of people are excited. They understand. They're getting the pay-per-view anyway. And that's just good to hear.
Yeah, that's the reality. I agree with you. I love their monthly subscription deal. It's, best deal in combat sports. But if you're going to put a lineup this stacked together, somebody's got to pay for it. That money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to come with a price. Like, that's just the way it's the name it is. When the UFC started out, if they had big guys like this, there was no fight pass yet. There was no free fight. Everything was a pay-per-view. That's how they start pay-per-view. Every UFC was a pay-per-view. So people kind of forget that, don't they? We've been spoiled so much moving forward.
They do. All right, listen, you talked about your one win. Obviously, your debut in BKFC was pretty phenomenal. So I guess in preparation for this one, I mean, was there anything that you took out of that you're like, you know what, as great as that was, I need to change this. I need to approach this differently. I need to do this. Or when you have as much success as you did last time, was this build-up just kind of like, hey, that worked. Let's just do the same thing this time also?
I'll be honest with you. It's getting that out of my head as much as I can, because I really don't think you can have a debut that that was it, right? That was the grand slam. There's a home run, there's a grand slam. That was it. So it's just like, I just want to get that fight out of my head. So a whole new challenge, whole new fight. I'm not expecting this guy to lay down. He's tough. So I'm bringing my best, and the end comes when it comes. I'm not trying to outdo that one, because I just don't feel like that. I don't even want that in my head. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I want to go in there and perform, and what's going to happen is going to happen, and people are going to love it.
I'm excited for it, man. I think the whole lineup is stacked, and you spent quite amount of time in Denver, right? I mean, it sounds like you came out very early to acclimatize. I guess, how early did you come out there to get used to the altitude, and I guess, have you felt the benefits so far?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I've been here a month. I came right after the press conference. I think Luke Rockhold was actually one up to me. He was here the week prior, so he's been here about 5 weeks when this is all said and done.
Smart.
But I'm good. Like, the first couple of weeks, about day 7, day 10, you talk to any of the locals that know it, they're like, yeah, that's about when it hits you. And me being a bigger guy, I know some smaller guys are like, oh, it's not a big deal. Well, when you're my size, everything changes, oxygen levels especially. So I didn't want to play around. Yeah, it's only 2-minute rounds. Well, fine. I don't want anything hindering what I can do to somebody for 5 2-minute rounds. And the course of to where I'm at today, yeah, I'm very happy. Everything's switched. I felt it a couple weeks ago, especially, like, man, really turned the corner, and it was the right thing to do.
That's a professional approach, man. I know that you love being at home and hate to be away for that long, but that is the absolute professional approach to do it.
Yeah, I gave up a month with my family watching my little guy.
Right.
He's they made a little side trip for the weekend to kind of break it up, so they came on a weekend in the middle. It was cool to hang out. Like, I don't want him forgetting me. And we FaceTime almost every day. He's still so little, like, he doesn't even, like, I don't even think he like gets anything. He's just having fun. He's just turned 2, just like a couple months ago. But it's hard on the wife. It's hard on her, because he's a handful. He is. She tells me every day. oh, have good fun with your training camp, taking care of yourself. I'm here with so I
it's
got
it's
a lot on my
uh,
shoulders.
it's wild. I remember the first time I left home after our son was born for a UFC trip. Normally I came home from a work trip and my wife was like, "Great to have you back. Look, I got dinner for you, and I took care of this." Once we had a kid, I came back home and it was like, "Here you go. I've been a single mom for the last week. Time for you to step up."
Yeah.
You're gonna have fun. All right. Well, listen. This is the non-weight cut era for Ben Rothwell. So, what are we
It's
expecting
not.
to? Oh, are you got to cut down for this one?
Yeah, the BKFC is like crazy about. It's like a war right now because in boxing it's 206 up. Well,
Right.
this is boxing, and they keep implementing too much about UFC. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we got UFC fighters and do things like UFC. Stop the weight classes. It's a made up number. It's a made up number at the heavyweight weight class. They just picked that number because way back when they didn't want fat slob dudes fighting. That's the truth. So you
It's
made it
true.
265 to cut down on the big fat slop dudes, and it was just a made up number. And heavyweight boxing, they don't care. Well, they're trying to implement this. They're trying to find a happy medium. Apparently, in the road after this fight, they want to declare. This is what I'm being told. 285 is going to be like the new heavyweight. But I don't even. It doesn't even make sense to me. Why? Why even do it? Like it doesn't matter.
Interesting.
They try to cite the commissions. You can't. It's your organization and it's boxing. Like you can't use the commissions. This isn't MMA. They're not using MMA regulations. It's the part that is a battle right now for
That
this
is
fight.
interesting.
Yeah, there's a weight that's actually um we're still figuring it out. Believe it or not, we're still figuring out what that's going to be. No matter whatever comes, I'm gonna have to cut. I'm Big Ben, I guess. It's just the way it is.
Interesting. Are
Because
you? I
people
mean, is it?
don't think when they look at me, they're like, "Oh, you weigh like this much." And I tell them the number, and they're like, "Damn, like you carry it well." So that
What
just
do you hope?
shows. When I was fighting my last years here at the UFC, yeah, I was going through some shit to make 265, and I don't believe I was performing my best at all. Because look how much different, look how more aggressive I was the last fight.
Yes. Yes, that's why I was excited about. Now I'm kind of upset. I thought that was maybe the big key. You know what I mean? Is you weren't having to cut weight anymore, and that took a load off
Yeah,
your shoulders. So
it
do you know
sucks. I'm
where?
trying not to. I'm trying not to overstress about it because cutting the weight at this high, the limits up here, like cutting 5 to 10 pounds up at my weight now isn't like when I was 275 and I was like, I did a lot to get to 275 and then I had to cut another 10. That was all very stressful on me.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the terms work out the best for you. I know that that you'll make sure that your interests are served. Another big win here, Ben. I mean, what are we doing? Are we looking for title belts? Are we calling certain names out? Is it just the biggest star you can find? What's the move moving forward?
Went through this a few times where I kind of know like I don't. There's no calling shots. It's perform well, get people excited. If the fans speak for me, I think it'll. That's what I need to do. I need to get the fans talking for me. That's who's going to do it. But ultimately, organizations do things that we don't understand. Um, but me having a good performance and having a title fight, I don't think anybody questions it. In fact, most people are calling it and think it's going to happen. And there's just obviously the guys. It's competition. They're the ones that are angry because they think that's what's going to happen, and they're upset about it. Well, too damn bad. Come fight me when I have the belt, and we can deal with it then.
I
Because
love it.
it's Alan Belcher's the guy, right? So we're gonna do it if that's what it comes down to.
I love it. Well, you have certainly paid your dues in combat sports. And if people think you're cutting the line a little bit in BKFC, well, just step in front and have a fight, right? I mean, I think you've earned that right. Another big win here. I don't see why that's not the fight you make.
Combat sport people understand, and they'll look at my record and they go, "Dude, I'm doing this for 20 some years. This isn't just like, oh, I'm an MMA guy. No, I have nearly 30 knockouts in MMA, which alone is its own standard. I don't know many people in MMA that have that many knockout victories, finishes in general. I've used my hands. Like this isn't new to me. It's just now I'm not kicking, punching, using takedowns. I'm just using the fists, which I've kind of always been doing, and that's kind of what I love to do. So this was a natural fit for me. It's the hardcore BKFC people that only do bare knuckle. They're like, he's only had one bare knuckle fight. And it's like, combat sport people are like, no, this guy's fought for 24 years. Like, so.
Yeah. Count me in that one. Count me in that one. Well, listen, it's this Saturday night. It's BKFC 41. It is a pay-per-view, but it's Mike Perry versus Luke Rockhold. It's Chad Mendez versus Eddie Alvarez. It's Big Ben Rothwell is on there against Josh Copeland. There's a lot to tune in for. So, Ben, we wish you the best as always, of course, and we'll be tuned in and watching.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Love coming on.